in the heart of England's green and pleasant lands. Pack your pistol and be ready at dawn.
If somebody tries to take something away from you, you have to fight back, don't you? You don't just lie down like a patsy. You don't want to pay. Why don't you want to pay?
I'll fight you for it then.
Oh, okay, I will.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
That's an unexpected...
Yeah. Any day.
From Devon to the Peak District lies a schism that 1,000 years ago began to define how England lives, works and plays in the countryside. Why, ask the swimmers on this mass trespass last week, should they be forced to break the law to simply go for a dip?
What we would envision the entire country having still, open access. You can walk out your door and you're free to stand in a field and listen to birdsong. You're not looking over your shoulder and expecting someone to ask what you're doing there.
The water company says accessing the reservoir's prohibited because it could be dangerous, but the swimmers say it's a risk they're willing to take.
If I was talking to a landowner, I would say to them, chill, you don't really need to be so worried about it. In terms of the law, the case law is quite clear that you're not going to be liable.
From the law to legacies of empire, a new documentary called Our Land explores why only 8% of England is publicly accessible.
It's an old story of people, land and power.
1% of the population own half of all England.
How the Norman conquest, followed by enclosure and colonialism, gifted wealthy landowners vast swathes of what was once shared land, and why they still have the right to keep commoners out.
If you held land, you were somebody. If you held no land, you were no one.
The Right to Roam campaign was born of the Kinder mass trespass nearly a century ago, which created our national parks. Scotland does have a legal right to roam, albeit responsibly, but not the rest of the UK. Something Labour promised in opposition, but in power has gone quiet.
This is the family pile, right? This is You guys have been here for how long?
800, 900 years, yes.
So we brought together two people on the front lines of this battle to tonk it out in deepest Devon.
How much land have you got?
3,000 acres.
And how much of that is publicly accessible?
None of it has public access on. It's privately owned land.
Which is the nub of the issue.
We're not trying to change the system of farming in this country. We're not trying to disturb people's privacy. We're just saying that as people that live in this country, live in England, we would like to be able to access nature much more easily than we currently can.
But possession, as they say, is 9/10. And as far as Francis is concerned, you want to play, you got to pay.
Is there any amount of wealth that you could have which would mean that you would say, you know what, this is my gift to the nation? Or will you always say, no, boys, you got to pay?
I think people should pay for what they enjoy doing. I mean, very rich people own Chelsea, but they still charge the buggers to go in, don't they?
Do you think nature and woodland and open spaces are the same as a football stadium?
No, I don't. And I'm not saying...
Why not? Because Francis puts work in to manage this.
Look, casting no shade on what Francis does to his land, that's great. But these trees would also exist.
Nature, privacy, responsibility. Over hill and about Vale, things got heated. They kept coming back to this.
Why can't you pay? It's your pleasure.
What we're talking about is simply to have access to nature on people's doorsteps.
Without paying. You don't want to pay.
Right. No,
Why don't you want to pay?
Until lo and behold, the pistols were sheathed and a hint of progress.
Here's an offer. In return for a right of responsible access to the countryside, what about if more people actually got involved in doing things like helping take out invasive species, picking up litter that's been left for whatever reason, doing things about that?
I mean, there's room to negotiate with every landowner and farmer on those very issues.
But I think he's asking you specifically.
Well, I mean,
it's an offer.
An offer, I have a think.
Defra told us current government policy is to concentrate on expanding the network of national walks and forests rather than new legislation, which it favoured when in opposition. Francis and Guy are but two voices in this complex discussion that Our Land, the film, attempts to tease out. It's released later this week.